Welcome back. My name is Chris Sachinelli. I get to build, buy, and sell simple profit businesses every single day. And today is going to be a really awesome video. It's going to be slightly long. However, if you run a profit-led business and you're interested in reducing risk, increasing profitability, and maximizing the longevity of your ability to stay in business, right? Because the way we win the game is to stay in the game for as long as possible by reducing risk and increasing our profitability. Today is going to be a really good video for you to stick with. It's actually based off the framework of a new book that I've been writing on being a profit-led business. I don't have a title 100% yet, but it's going to be around the concept of building a profit-led business, which is what we're all about over at Bootstrapper Capital, where we're building the most affordable and flexible performance-based capital of choice for profit-led SMBs. And we're going to be taking this people-led to process-led to profit-led framework-based approach, which you could bear with us to actually implement in the end inside of your business so that you can maximize higher valuations, better terms on investment, larger exit multiples, increasing the likelihood of you putting more profit in your pocket, in the process, right? When we get into this, we know that this is a problem to solve for. We know that there's something that's addressable here for us to focus in and create this IP, create, the structures, the strategy, and ultimately through the community, the accountability to be able to help folks get to simple, profitable outcomes. And more importantly, take a profit-led approach to building a better business, because the stats tell us there's a problem, right? Unfortunately, today, only half of businesses will survive their first 5 years in business. And it goes down to a third when you go and bring it out to 10 years, right? And this is from a stat that's provided by the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. And if you go to other sources, you can see numbers that are even, worse than that, 75% of businesses failing and things of that nature, right? That's a massive addressable problem because, we're talking about 33 million plus small businesses inside America today that we know about, right? That's not even including a lot of like the solopreneurs and freelancers and everybody coming out of COVID who has side hustles and things of that nature, right? 46% of the US labor market is employed by small business. It truly is the backbone of the US economy. And unfortunately, that 50%, inside of that, what does that mean? That means that over 600,000 small businesses are going out of business every single year, right? And that's for a number of different reasons. But we know that from, different types of polls and surveys and data reports that are provided to us, that 82% of the businesses that are failing, it's because of cash flow problems. And typically when it's a cash flow issue, it's because that business has not been able to take and adopt a profit-led approach to building a better business, right? We also know that inclusive in that, based off of stats from the SBA, roughly 30% of businesses, almost a third of businesses that are failing because of lack of access to capital. So with Bootstrapper Capital, we're trying to truly solve these last two problems here and hopefully keep more businesses in business by helping you get profit-led, right? And that's why we have the profit-led pledge and, this IP around helping create a framework for you to get profit-led, and then also providing access to the affordable and flexible capital over at Bootstrapper Capital, right? So our mission truly is to help every profit-led business, every entrepreneur who's building a profit-led business survive their first 5 years in business, right? So that we can turn that 50% into 100%, and then ultimately thrive by mastering all 5 exits of ownership. And we break it down by 5 exits of ownership because it's the same reason of like how you eat a cake. It's one bite at a time. How do you survive in business? One exit at a time, right? So ultimately, it gives us a plan. It gives us a place to start. And then it gives us a goal line of what we need to do. And then systematically, we can create a process-led approach to be able to get there, right? When we're talking about the game of business, the primary goal and objective is to keep playing it, right? The way you win the game of business is to stay in it. Whoever can stay in it the longest has the highest probability of success, right? And you want to ultimately be able to build the most sustainable business that's going to extract the maximum amount of profit from the market for the longest period of time. that's how you put the most profit in your pocket. You want to, ultimately build a profit-led business that's going to be profitable. And then you want to do that for a very, very long period of time. That means that you need to build a company that is dynamic enough to adapt and change based off of different market conditions and market dynamics. It can't be, a product centric company, right? That's why we focus on this concept of building first ultimately a people-led organization, because a people-led organization is optimized around the people, and that means that there's values, right? And as a values-driven organization, there's a cultural expectation in terms of what's good, what's bad, and how do we approach things. And when your people know this, right, and there's a cultural imprint inside of the business, that's when you're no longer dependent upon a single product, because people, right, with that type of value-driven approach, with process in place, can build, develop, and then bring to market, new products that meet market needs and demands as the markets change and shift, right? And that's how you stay in the game for a really long period of time. That's how you build 100-year-long, lasting business, right? So that, combined with the discipline to be able to make good capital allocation decisions, and capital allocations isn't just, finitely constrained to financial capital. We're talking about all of the capital that you have inside of your business. So that means your time capital, human capital, intellectual capital, right? Your raw materials capital, and also your financial capital. And you have to be able to make the best possible decision, good timely decisions, to maximize the profitability of production through where you're allocating that capital at any given time. Right? So 3 things to be able to continue to stay in the game. You need to not be, product centric, dependent upon one product. You need to be, people led with a culture that can follow a process and do so in a profit led manner that keeps you dynamically enough to stay in business for a long period of time. Right? That's going to allow you to maximize the amount of profit that you're going to be able to put in your pocket for the longest period of time possible. And all of that comes down to this concept of sustainability. So, all of those other bullets in the last slide, realistically, that was just all a whole bunch of words for the one word that matters, sustainable, because we're trying to build a sustainable business, right? And to ensure that you stay in business for the longest period of time, which is the goal, right? You need to focus on removing as much risk as possible from your business, right? So you're talking about reducing risk to increase your return. You want to have and achieve the highest return with the lowest overall costs, right? And then you want to, ultimately get to the highest profit, right? Because the highest return with the lowest cost is going to get you your maximum profit. You want to get your maximum profit for the longest period of time. And that's sustainability. And that's, ultimately putting the most possible profit in your pocket for the longest period of time. That's maximizing the profitability of your business for the most sustainable period of time. And in order to do this, we came up with this framework, right? It's a framework in terms of a perspective, because if you change your perspective, you can change your approach. And this allows us to achieve the people-led culture in the business, which will follow a process-led approach to operate a long-term profit-led business, right? So again, earlier we were talking about having, people with a culture following a process, framed within a profit-led discipline. And people-led businesses will ultimately adopt your process-led approach to build and deliver products that adapt to these dynamic market conditions, right? So as times change, as long as you're instilling the right values, right, and you have the right people following the right values, actually taking the right process-led approach, right, to building and then delivering the right products to market, then ultimately you can have a profit-led business who can make good timely decisions with those finite resources that you have to focus the people that are in your business into the right processes that deliver that product to the market at a profit, right? So it's your people-led and your process-led approach that will ultimately allow you to get to, profit in your pocket. Why a people-led approach, right? So ultimately, people is what our end goal is. We're trying to build people-led organizations. People-led organizations are byproducts of process-led organizations, which are byproducts of profit-led organizations, right? So why people-led? Great people build great businesses, right? So that's something that, we all kind of know. We take, sometimes we take for granted, right? But there is a true war on talent, and you want to attract and retain, the best people. Why? Because great people build great businesses. Now, that's one thing. Then you got to retain those people, because ultimately, if somebody gets really good at doing something, the longer that they do it, the better they get. So the more efficient and effective, the more productive they are. So now you have great people operating highly efficiently and effectively, very productive, and they're building a very, ultimately, if it's operated within the right framework, profitable business. And you want to keep people, right? So to make that happen, you want happy people, because happy people stay in great businesses. And great businesses extract the most profit over the longest period of time that people are staying happy and being productive and doing things profitably. So you want to really build a people-led organization realistically, so that you can attract the best people, and then you can retain the best people over the longest period of time to put the most profit in your pocket, right? And that's how you get to sustainability. And sustainability is really a byproduct of a people-led organization. But that doesn't happen just overnight. That's not a point and click type of thing. People-led organizations are byproducts of process-led organizations, right? Why a process-led approach? Process-led matters because at the end of the day, you got to get to outcomes, right? We have to get to a value exchange within the market where we're delivering something of value, a product or a solution, within a framework of a cost, right? In a repeatable manner, in a sustainable way. So you got to remember, you can't always guarantee outcomes in business or in life, right? You can never guarantee an outcome. But when we're trying to reduce risk and we're trying to control and manage for risks, what we want to remind ourselves is that you can always control process, right? So if my goal is to build the most repeatable and sustainable widget, right, and sell it at a set, at a price within a set cost so I can achieve my margin, then what I really want to focus on is controlling the process. So even though in the last slide we said that the net goal, the highest tier goal, is to build a people-led organization, people-led organizations are really, byproducts of businesses that have their process down. Because simple processes will lead people to repeatable, profitable outcomes, right? And ultimately, if you can identify and simplify what specific repeatable processes lead to those outcomes, again, good people want to do a good job. So if good people can do a good job in your business, more efficient and effective, thus faster than any other business, they're going to do it quicker. So they're going to do more, better, faster. And that puts them in a position where they can ultimately, make more money in less time. And typically where people enjoy the culture and they can make more money in less time, they want to stay. So process-led businesses actually help you optimize for people. So simplifying process can help you optimize for people by increasing the productivity, the happiness, and ultimately the sustainability of the business. Now, in order to get to a process-led business, you got to really start focusing on being a profit-led business, right? The name of the game of a profit-led business is to make sure that you're clear on where you're going. So you want to have clear values, and you want to have clear values that drive towards your North Star, right? So your North Star is your objective strategy actions, like what you're actually doing to focus, because strategy equals focus. But it's your, who you are and what you're about, your values, your why, your purpose, your vision, your purpose, and your mission on the right, your financial reality on the left, so that you can make disciplined, financial driven decisions. And then ultimately you want to be a sustainable business that's putting profit in your pocket for as long as possible. You're achieving higher valuations as a profit-led business, right? Because you're ultimately doing this thing called building wedge equity, right? Because you have this a better business, you're able to also get better terms on investment, because the funny thing about money is it tends to go to the people who don't need it, right? So if you're building a more profitable business, if you're building a better business, it also typically translates to better terms on investment. I mean, that's why bootstrapper capital, that's why we care so much about this in the first place. We're trying to reduce risk in businesses that we're investing in, right? So we're trying to, we've created all of this IP to help folks become profit-led businesses and try to simplify the process of folks becoming profit-led to then, be process-led to then be people-led, because that reduces risk, right? Reducing risk is, ultimately lower failure rates, right? And when you're doing all of these things systematically, what ends up happening is you also get a better reputation in the market, right? Because people know, like, and trust you. You're dependable, right? You're people like working with your organization, customers, employees, investors, right? Your product is good, it's consistent, right? You're able to extend your cultural values to the market, and all those things impact your reputation at the end of the day, right? So by being a profit-led business and taking the profit-led pledge, tons of benefits that ultimately come from it. However, in order to achieve this, right, that's kind of like it's what we really need to do is think about it from, you got to go bottom up, right? So how do we achieve this bottom up, people-led approach to building a top-down profit-led business? Top down is, as the owner of the business, I want to put as much profit in my pocket as I possibly can while I own this business, right? I'm trying to extract as much profit from the market over the longest period of time and put that in my pocket. That's the goal of ownership, right? Well, in order to have a top down, in order to help the top down owners achieve that goal, what we really need to do is think about it by building it bottoms up. And the way that we do that is take a people-led approach, right? So building a people-led business, taking a people-led approach to building a top-down profit-led business means adopting the structures and the strategies and the accountability to the day-to-day operations of our business, that we can then install an infrastructure, a foundational infrastructure that allows us to build a profit-led organization, right? Because when people know what to think about, right, when they know the right things to do, they're not thinking about everything else. When people, are just kind of living within a framework, they can focus. And strategy equals focus, and focus tends to lead us to outcomes, right? So implementing this foundational infrastructure, it's going to systematically help us increase the value of the business, and it's ultimately going to functionally help us build this thing that we call wedge equity, which wedge equity is the incremental value inside of a business that can be captured. Why? Because we're optimizing the business for ownership. And when you're optimizing a business for ownership, you're optimizing it for two parts. You're optimizing it for ownership of owners today, but you're also intrinsically optimizing it for owners in the future, right? And when you optimize for ownership in the future, what you're doing is you're increasing the potential valuation of the business, because you're building an asset that's exit ready, right? And wedge equity is simply the incremental value you can build in a business by increasing and improving specific value drivers that impact the valuation of the business by building your brand equity and your operational equity over time. And it's just making it a more transferable asset and a more valuable asset to future buyers. And that's getting your business exit ready, right? So in order to build wedge equity, you need to build an exit ready business, which is intrinsically meaning you're building a capital ready business, because a business that is exit ready is also ready to receive capital, right? An exit ready business, somebody buying a business is just buying all of the business and giving all the capital, right? Exercise of inversion, an investment is just a small amount of that. It's a sliver of that, right? So if you're building an exit ready business, you're also intrinsically building a capital ready business. And we want to get capital ready, right? So building an exit ready business is going to get you higher valuations, better terms on investment, and larger exit multiples. Because an exit ready business takes the components the drivers that go into a valuation, right? So we want to understand how a business is valued by potential buyers. We go through the process of evaluation. You're identifying that valuation where things are strong, where things are weak, right? And then you're through those identification of the value drivers, you can then identify where you need to improve, right? That gets you to higher valuations because your business is built better. And again, because it's exit ready, it's capital ready, that's going to get you in a better position for better terms on investment. So now when you need money, you get money because you're a better business to invest in. You have lower risk, right? Because it's a more transfer, it's a more exit ready asset. And then because of all those things combined, when it is actually time to sell, right, you will be able to get larger exit multiples, right? Because you're building a business that can demand that in the market because you understand how the market works. That's the process of unlocking value. And in order to achieve the higher valuations, the better terms on investment, and the larger exit multiples, you need to understand how the market dynamics work and then how you can leverage them to work in your favor. And that ties back into the process of valuing your business, right? So when we're talking about valuing your business, I said earlier, brand equity and operational equity, but really what that comes down to is your money's multiple, which your money's multiple is kind of like you take your, some folks will use revenue, some folks will use EBITDA. Most folks will try to use seller's discretionary earnings, SDE. And then, you look at how the market gets made and what other businesses trade at in terms of a multiple effect of SDE. And that's your money's multiple, right? So some businesses, for example, will trade at a 2 times money multiple. So you find out your SDE and you multiply it by 2, and that's the market value of your business, right? Some will trade at 10 times SDE, depending upon the amount of revenue, like the scale of your business and the vertical, the niche of your business, industry, type of business. You'll have different money's multiples. Your money's multiple is an indicator of the valuation. However, it's not the only thing that impacts your valuation. You also have this other thing called risk. So you need to understand the risk ratio inside of your business, the risk in your business, because that's what discounts your money's multiple. So when you're valuing your business, you're getting your SDE, you're multiplying it by whatever your money's multiple is, but that's not what somebody's going to pay for it. That's not what it's really worth. In order to understand what it's really worth, you need to understand what risk lives inside of your business today. By figuring that out, you can get to your risk ratio, which is your discount rate. So folks, buyers, professional buyers, will discount your business based off of the risk ratio, right? The other thing that we need to take into account, which ties to the longevity of a business, because really a value of a business, it's not just like what the business is doing today. It's also about what the business is going to be doing in the future once it's purchased, right? If I had the option between purchasing an AI humanoid robot factory versus a stagecoach factory, I would choose to purchase the AI humanoid robot factory because I believe that business will be around much longer than the stagecoach factory, right? So you want to buy businesses that are going to be in business for a long period of time, right? Extracting that maximum profitability from the market for the longest period of time. And that ties to the happiness equation. Because again, businesses that are optimized around people tend to, and if you optimize it around people, you're optimizing around happiness of people. Happy people tend to stay in businesses longer. People who stay in businesses longer tend to get better at their jobs. People that are better at their jobs tend to be more efficient and effective, which is productive. Productive people tend to be more profitable. Profitable people who keep doing it tend to stay profitable and stay doing it, right? So maximizing longevity is sustainability. So we take into the account the happiness equation as well, right? And that ties into longevity of the business. In order to be able to implement, a foundational approach to actually being able to set up your business to maximize the value over time, you want to build as complete of what we call an equity management system as possible so that you can support people, you can support process, and you can support the profit in the business. Inclusive in all of this is also product. So don't think that product doesn't matter. In none of this am I saying that product doesn't matter. All I'm saying is that product is a byproduct of great people and a great business following great process with a profit-led approach, understanding the market needs and then filling it, right? I have our thesis is that great people in any business that's a process-led business and a profit-led business, right? People-led, process-led, profit-led. If you have the combination of those three, then the combination of those three will always find a product to bring to market in a profitable manner, right? Finding product market fit, servicing market demand, and staying in business for the longest period of time. It's really those three. It's the triad of people, process, and profit that actually afford the opportunity for the product to exist and the business to stay sustainable, right? So in order to do that, what we do is we try to build a foundation on how that business can operate with discipline, right? Because what we're trying to create is structure, strategy, and accountability for operational excellence in that business. And what we have identified and the way that we approach it is that there's different stages of business, right? So I'm about to get into the different exits, and there's 5 exits of ownership, right? But there's also different stages of implementation of a foundational approach. Now, other folks out there may call what we call our equity management system, or what we really believe to be just like a foundational approach to building a good business, so that you can get to operational excellence, like just a foundation approach. Like this is how we run the business, right? Some folks will call it operating systems or business operate. There's a ton of different ways and methodologies out there. I don't think that there's necessarily one that's better than the other. In fact, for us, we don't think that it's really comes down to the tools or templates that really truly make or break the system. We think that it's more of like the methodology and approach, right? So in our approach, you have the first go of it, which is early adoption. And early adoption is broken down into 4 distinct pillars so that you can separate and then focus on each one individually. And that's for a business that's choosing to now be profit-led and they want to build the foundation, right? So it's early adoption of a foundational approach. Typically best suited for businesses that are between exits 1 and 3. And I'm about to cover, all the 5 exits. The long-term adoption is once, the 4 pillars were first set up, and then you're simplifying, right? So the first 4 pillars, when you're focusing on each one individually, separately, early adoption, you're organizing around profit, you're standardizing around product, you're simplifying around process, and then you're optimizing around people, right? Those are the 4 key pillars of operational excellence that you need to foundationally focus on. If you can foundationally focus on those 4, the chances of you being a profit-led business are going to be very high, right? You can then optimize, simplify process and then optimize around people. Long-term adoption for simplified focus is ultimately all you need to do is think about 2 things. 1, organize around profit, right? As long as you keep the financial discipline and you're continually organized around the profitability of your business, right? On 1 focus, the only other thing you need to think about is optimizing around people. Why? Because you've already standardized around your product and you've already simplified around process. And standardizing around product and simplifying around process, those are 2 functions of making and building a better culture right? A better organizational culture to optimize around people. So all you really need to be obsessed with in later stage, once you've done this once, is to organize around profit and then optimize around people. So you simplify to two things of obsession and focus. And these is typically when you're an exit 4 and exit 5 business, you're really trying to extract as much economic value from the business and build something that's bigger than any single person. You're trying to really build that business that's going to maximize, long-term longevity of profitability in the market, right? In order to do this, we got to understand it's how you eat a cake one bite at a time. There's an exit-based approach, right? So not all businesses are the same. That's why I don't personally, believe that these other operating systems that are out there that you could find, I don't necessarily fully subscribe to them because they oftentimes take this one size fits all approach. And my belief system is that every business is unique and different. Nobody's the same business. Nobody's at the same stage, right? In order to implement the right type of foundational infrastructure for your current stage, we need to first master, all 5 exits of ownership. We need to know where we are so we can identify where we need to be, and then we can systematically implement what's necessary based off of who we are and what we're about and where we are at the time needs, right? From an exit-based approach, we believe that there's 5 exits of ownership. It's just how we simplify navigating owning a business, the life cycle of ownership, right? So the first exit is you're exiting the day job, and then you're making your business your job, right? So typically folks are at exit 1 when you're doing it on the side, right? Maybe it's a passion project or something of that nature. Your goal is to make the business your job. It allows us to focus what matters. Because we can focus what matters, we can simplify the foundational, infrastructure or the equity management system, the components of the system that need to be implemented, right? Exit number 2, you're going to exit doing all the work and you're going to start hiring the team, right? Exit number 3 is you're exiting managing the people, you're exiting managing the team, and you're going to start building the business system. You want to, build the business that runs itself. Exit number 4 is your exit running the day-to-day of the business now that you built the system, and you're going to start hiring an operator to run that for you. It's really the first true exit where you can actually get yourself into a passive asset, passive ownership, and start putting passive profit in your pocket. First true exit. And then exit number 5 is the exit that most folks, think about when they think about exiting a business, and that's exiting owning the business. And that's when you can usually start enjoying, freedom, which is typically why people do this in the first place. It's a freedom to decide, life freedom. Now, remember, at the very beginning of this, we said that the primary objective of business is to stay in it. The way to win it is to stay in it, right? When we're talking about winning, what we're really talking about is implementing the right components of the equity management system for the right exit when we can increase the odds of surviving, right? So the first goal was to survive the first 5 years in business. That's what our mission is. We want to help folks. We want to help profit-led business owners survive the first 5 years of business. We believe that if you take a people-led, process-led, profit-led approach to implementing the equity management system based off of your current exit of ownership, right, then you're going to increase the odds that you're going to stay in business. And if we can increase the odds that you'll stay in business, then ultimately we can increase the odds that you'll go on and master all 5 exits of ownership. Because if you know which exit you are, then you know which exit you need to get to. If you know what needs to be done and what needs to be implemented at each exit, and then you have a profit-led, a process-led, and a people-led approach to building a better business that's truly unlocking value, right? Putting more profit in your pocket, getting you higher valuations, better terms on investment, larger exit multiples, then there's a really good chance that you're going to ultimately master all 5 exits of ownership. And the byproduct of doing that is you're really focusing on a reduction of risk. So we're going to reduce risk in your business. We're going to increase the profitability, and we're going to maximize the longevity of you staying in business. And if you remember all the way to the beginning of us starting this video, and if you watched it with it to the end, I appreciate you for that. The promise I made at the very beginning was this video is going to be about how we can actually reduce risk, increase profitability, and maximize longevity. And that is exactly where we just ended. If you stuck with us to the end, I appreciate it. Trust the process, commit to the journey, take the ProfitLed pledge, right? Get into the community over at Bootstrapper Capital, right? Let us help you unlock value in your business, build wedge equity, put more profit in your pocket. And then ultimately, as you're building that equity, ideally you unlock capital, by applying, for our performance-based capital of choice, which is the most affordable and flexible capital for profit-led SMBs. Till next time.